the word refugee is not synonymous to criminal. The world has let down the refugees because they think when they see refugees, they have seen criminals. To me, a minister responsible for this 1.3 million people, refugees represent, they are victims of a dysfunctional global system.
Whether you're a migrant or a refugee, the only way you can do is ask for at the same boot for asylum, and sometimes with very long periods of having a decision. And this is of course also blocking not only support in the local communities, but also effective integration. And as a last point, of course, also we see sometimes a competition on being the worst host.
There are times in history when there was migration from Europe to Africa, in Uganda particularly. During the Second World War, we had tens of thousands of refugees from Poland. Then we also had what was called the Uganda Plan, which was an attempt by the British in the colonial days to resettle Jews to Karamoja. It's just a matter of time. But refugees and migrants, migration happens both ways. For now, it's the other way.
I want to start by really saying migration is a given. We all migrate, whether locally in our villages, in our districts, in our countries, and then globally to other people's whatever. So it is something that we cannot put a stop to. And then now we talk about migration and forced migration. For me, any ordinary type of migration other than forced migration should be to some extent voluntary. Don't I have a right to actually choose to go and live in Spain, in Netherlands for 5 years and then come out?
And I personally don't see how containing migration and investing more in border management and building fences is actually considered as a tool to reduce poverty.
So while we are saying we are not doing it, we are not the ones stopping refugees from coming to Europe, we actually externalize our border and ask other governments to do it for us.
We have a clear distinction between, for example, refugees and economic migrants. Refugees have a very clear status and protection. However, economic migrants not so much, but we know we have a definition, we know there is a distinction between the two.
But for both, no legal routes exist to Europe. So everyone, irrespective of which category you are in, first has to make it to Europe. And we all know and we hear the horrible stories of what it takes to come over the Mediterranean to reach European shore.
The reactionary approach of closing borders and all that is not going to stop migration. People will move. I don't think anyone would just wake up to just move because you just want to move. There are issues that push people to move. And I think these are the issues that we need to look at addressing.
Human rights of all migrants must be protected. We signed these treaties, all countries, Europe, Africa.
It's essential to make sure we don't get a competition between the newcomers and the ones who are already there, resulting, of course, in scapegoating, in xenophobia, all the negative things we see all over the world. Access to labor market, even if difficult to find the work, having the possibility, at least the chance, to be able to go to work legally is very important. And I think also no competition on labor rights, right? Once you start to have like a kind of second-rated citizens and the first-rated citizens, this will create tensions on the long term.
From the South African experience, it's quite different. Yes, we also have free movement. We have access to education, access to work and study, but social cohesion is the problem for us. As you all know, we have an issue with xenophobia. We don't see Africans as people who contribute to development. We don't see Africans as people we can learn from. We only see a burden.
What do we mean by discrimination? Discrimination is we are all young people. We don't have enough job in Africa for everybody, but we all went to study together, for example. But why? Because you are the daughter or the son of this ambassador, you are going to get the job. Why there is no transparency, and why there is no way to study normally and to get a job like a normal citizen. In 20 years, what will be the future of Africa? Which kind of job we will need in Africa? Should we continue following Europe with the technologies they are developing, or we have to do some research ourselves to know what we want in order to create more jobs? Because the solution is creating jobs for young people. I used to have this discussion many times when I came back home with my dad. The first resources of my country, I will say gold. He said, no, it's agriculture. We need to do that. But how can we make agriculture sexy for our young people?
We need to support the youth as they are, like in their initiatives. The youth, especially when it comes to implementation on the ground, use a community-based approach, human-centered design approach. Let them own the projects. Let them own, be responsible for their own actions.
We went in the community and asked the community what project would be best for the community. And then they told us an education project. So we began an elementary school and a primary school called DAYSTAR Junior School. When we began, we had 173 children the first term, but now we have 396 children. And we have many refugees from Southern Sudan, from Congo, and from Burundi. Our refugee population amounts to like 25 children. And we are coexisting. We are the same. We don't talk about segregation. We are all Ugandans in our schools. That's what we say.
I've had conversations about technical skills and vocational skills for young people. And I'm going to challenge everybody seated on that panel that some of you have organizations that train young people in different skills, carpentry. In Uganda, one of the famous ones is liquid soap making and such things. But how many of our organizations actually buy from these young people? How many of them train them with the quality enough for your organizations to actually buy? Because the last time I asked the Danish ambassador this question, he said, well, we have procurement policies and blah, 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 quality control. But if you're not training these young people with goods to produce, to make products the quality that your offices would actually buy, then why are you doing these trainings? Because ultimately, if you're not buying these products first, who should be buying them? So I think there's also a certain amount of honesty that we need to bring to the conversation of development, as opposed to just channeling money to fuel big SUV cars and go to the field, but to have more money do the actual work as opposed to operational costs. Thank you very much.
EU knows what they want from Africa, but does Africa know what they want from the EU? When they give money to support these issues, these situations, they come back and take it back. You know, you have an expert who is being paid $10,000 a month, but the person who is running the project on the ground is getting $1,000 a month. Why? We shouldn't wait for the EU as Africa. Yeah? We should be able to have countries that can come in. If Uganda is experiencing hunger, don't wait to go and consult China to send rice. Yeah? Is there any other country in Africa that has rice, that can donate to Uganda? Why should we wait for Chinese rice? Why should you wait for World Food Program to bring biscuits from America? And then for the AU to promote African unity, you know, promote African unity, Pan-Africanism. Let's have that unity. Let's have that unity that the EU has, you know, and it would be very good if we had a language that would unite us, or a currency that would unite us.
One thing which the African Union knows and our governments do know is, just like we all know, every conflict that happens in Africa, it has become easily predictable. We know when the next war is going to be in the continent. Yeah, we do know, because there are those ingredients that lead to such conflicts. But not much is being done in prevention. To me, I would focus, if African Union can take on leadership to inspire the generation of conflict preventers, not fighters, I think this would be a good opportunity. If we can also come as African Union, maybe the world focuses more on peacekeeping mission. Our governments are struggling. I would
focus as a point of focus, as a point of subject of concern. How can we raise young generation of humanitarian leaders? We have, my sister talked about fertile land. Africa dominating over 65% of the world agricultural land, and yet it's the continent starving. This is unacceptable. We can do something. So how can we work towards empowering and engaging this generation? They are young people, they are generation under pressure for change.
Me, what I see is we always have our recommendation, but sometimes we feel like there's no implementation. But what I can say that we cannot lose hope, because if we are seeing how as refugees and host community we are trying, we are having youth-led initiative, like what we have heard from my colleagues like Yarit, Ayan, Mira Group and other youth-led initiative. We are trying to see that we can bring change among us youth. So me, I can say that not having our eyes in this big institution like African Union, European Union, but it has to start from us. We are, what we are doing, where we are going, to see that we can bring that change.